7-2 from Washington State, number 40, James Donaldson.
Αγαπητοί μας μπασκετόφιλοι, καλησπέρα σας. Πιστοί στην υπόσχεσή μας να σας κρατάμε μπασκετική συντροφιά στην περίοδο της καραντίνας, απόψε θα φιλοξενήσουμε έναν από τους μεγαλύτερους παίκτες εργάτες του NBA, ο οποίος πέρασε και αγαπήθηκε και στην πατρίδα μας. Ο ύψους 2,18 James Donaldson γεννήθηκε στην Αγγλία το 1957. Φοιτήσε στο Lutheran Burbank High School, ενώ κολέγιο πήγε στο Washington State. Το 1975 έγινε draft στο τέταρτο γύρο στο νούμερο 73 από τους Seattle Supersonics. Έκανε σπουδαία καριέρα στο NBA για 12 ολόκληρα χρόνια, αγωνιζόμενος στους Supersonics, στους Los Angeles Clippers, στους Dallas Mavericks και New York Knicks, ενώ το 1988 ψηφίστηκε και αγωνίστηκε στο All-Star του NBA. Αξέχαστες θα του μείνουν οι δύο χρονιές στην Ελλάδα στον Ηρακλή, το 93 και 94, όπου είχε σε 30 παιχνίδια στην Α1, 12,1 πόντους, 12,2 rebounds και 2,2 τάπες μέσω όρο ανά παιχνίδι. Επίσης, με μεγάλη επιτυχία αγωνίστηκε και στη Λάρισα, όπως και στις ισπανικές Κάχα Σαν Φερνάντο και Μπρέογκαν. Σίγουρα όμως το αποκορύφωμα της καριέρας του ήταν με τους Dallas Mavericks το 88, όπου με συμπαίκτες τους Mark Aguirre, Ronaldo Blackman, Roy Tarpley, Derek Harper, Sam Perkins και Brad Davis έφτασαν μέχρι τους τελικούς της δυτικής περιφέρειας, όπου αποκλείστηκαν από τους θρυλικούς Los Angeles Lakers, τον Magic και Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Στην καριέρα του στο NBA σημείωσε 8.203 πόντους, 7.492 rebounds και 1.267 τάπες. Αγαπητοί μπασκετόφιλοι, σας παρουσιάζουμε τον James Donaldson. Καλή σας διασκέδαση!
Καλησπέρα σας κυρίες και κύριοι, αγαπητοί μπασκετόφιλοι. Είναι μια πολύ ξεχωριστή βραδιά για όλους εμάς απόψε και γιατί όχι για το ελληνικό μπάσκετ καθ' ολοκληρία. Νομίζω δεν είναι τόσο συχνό φαινόμενο να δίνεται η ευκαιρία σε όλους εμάς τους μπασκετικούς στην Ελλάδα να γνωρίζουμε, να συναναστρεφόμαστε και να συζητάμε με παλιούς αστέρες του NBA. Λοιπόν, μετά από προτροπή ενός ένθερμου υποστηρικτή του Basketbook, του Κώστα του Μολώνη, τον οποίο τον ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ, απόψε έχουμε τη χαρά και την τιμή να φιλοξενούμε τον παλιό μεγάλο αστέρα των Seattle Supersonics, των Dallas Mavericks, των Los Angeles Clippers, των New York Knicks, του Ηρακλή, της Λάρισσας και πολλών άλλων, το James Donaldson. Από εδώ και στο εξής η συζήτηση θα γίνεται στα αγγλικά, με ίσως κάποιες μεταφράσεις από μέρος μου, όπου κρίνω ότι υπάρχει λόγος για μετάφραση. So, James, good evening from Athens, Greece. It's been a long time, my friend. Yes. We still recall you. You're very deep in our memories, and we recall your era and your days and your works back in Iraklis and in Larissa. Yes. You're a figure, James, that Greek basketball fans really love you, and they still talk about you.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, I have great memories about Greece. And the two teams, the two cities I lived in, Thessaloniki and Larissa, I still have many friends there, so I speak to them on occasion.
Oh, you still keep in touch with some Greek old friends of yours?
Oh, yeah, quite a few still, quite a few.
This is so nice.
Yes.
Okay,
when I was there, I made very good friendships with many people.
Great. Before I give up to our prime reporters and scouts in some way, to Andreas and George. You were born in England, right?
I was born in England, yes. I was born in England.
Okay, so your family had moved there from the States. Originally, you were from the United States, correct?
Right. Well, my father was in the military, so he was stationed in England. So I was born there, then he came back to the States after I was born.
See, it seems to like I don't know what's wrong with you big guys. I mean, Shaquille's dad was stationed in Germany. Your dad was stationed in England. I mean, maybe we should spread the message to the to the American military man. If they get a job somewhere in Europe, their sons could be born at least 7 feet or taller.
Maybe there's something to it. Maybe. Who
Maybe
knows?
there's something to it. We should investigate about it. Okay. Now, Andreas, I'm giving you to Andreas. Andrea, you can start the interview of Mr. James Donaldson.
Thank you very much, Christos. Good evening, James.
Good to see you, Andres. How are you? Tikanis.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
So, let's go back to your childhood. After moving from England to US, you were grown in Sacramento?
Actually, in the San Francisco area of California, maybe 1.5 hours from Sacramento. My father finished his military career at a military base there. And then we went to Sacramento, maybe when I was in the 4, 5, 6 years old. Yes.
So your first connection with the sport came in what age?
Oh, not until high school. I started very late with basketball. I had no interest in sports. I wasn't good. I had no interest. I was a big kid, but I never played. And so when I got to high school, of course, the high school basketball coach asked me to come out for the basketball team. The first year, I told him no. The second year, we kind of met halfway. He told me to come out and practice, but I don't have to play. So I came to practice every day as a junior, my second year in high school. And the third year, I began to play full-time all the time. So it took me a while to get started, my last year in high school.
Where your height was 7'2" back then?
7 foot back in high school. After I grew.
Seven feet.
Yeah, I was 6'8", 6'9" when my coach asked me to come out, and I told him no. So I kept growing. The next year I was 6'11" and 7 feet. So, I kept growing for a while.
And after you graduated from high school, you went to Washington State?
Yes, Washington State University, yes. Yes. And I was only a so-so basketball player in high school because I was big. I get double-figure points, double-figure rebounds every day. But that's just because I was a big kid. But I really didn't know how to play. And so when I got to Washington State University, I basically set the bench and practiced every day for 2 years. My freshman year, my sophomore year. I'd get in the game maybe if we were up by 25 points or down by 25 points with 30 seconds to go. I'd get in just for a little bit my first couple of years. So I just continued to practice, continued to develop, get stronger, bigger, faster. And by the time I was a junior, I was full size and ready to go. I became a full-time basketball player then.
Did you ever thought that back then that you are going to be a professional basketball player?
No, not at all. I was always a good student, and so I was studying to become a teacher or a professor or something like this. I really loved teaching. I thought I'd be in a classroom at a high school or a university level, teaching students. This is what I wanted to do. So it wasn't until my last year at the university where the scouts were starting to ask around about the different players. They were asking about me also, that I thought, well, maybe I'll give basketball a try at a professional level and see what happens. I had no idea.
Did you accept that you're going to be selected in the NBA draft?
I knew I'd be selected somewhere. I didn't think I'd be a top pick. I was the 3rd or 4th pick for the Seattle Supersonics back in 1979. So this was the year they won the NBA championship also. And so my first year out of university, I went to Italy. I played in Siena, Italy for 1 year because I still needed to practice. I still needed to get better. I needed to play full time. I couldn't sit the bench and just wait. I had to go and continue developing. So that's what I did my first year out of university.
Okay. Allow me one question to Christos. Are we going to translate in Greek or not?
Okay.
Ναι, να μεταφράσουμε. Please allow us to translate, to make an outline of translation. Ο James Donaldson, βεβαίως, ναι, όπως ακούσατε, αγαπητοί τηλεθεατές, γεννήθηκε όντως στην Αγγλία. Σε πολύ μικρή παιδική ηλικία μετακόμισε στην Αμερική. Στην πραγματικότητα φοιτήσε στο high school στο Lutheran Burbank, στο Σαν Φρανσίσκο. Δεν ενδιαφερόταν πάρα πολύ για το μπάσκετ. Γενικότερα για τον αθλητισμό ήταν περισσότερο ένας scholar τύπος, ένα ακαδημαϊκό παιδί κατά μία έννοια. Του άρεσε πολύ η σπουδή και το διάβασμα. Μετά από μια αφόρητη πίεση του προπονητή του high school του Lutheran Burbank, τον πίεσε πάρα πολύ στην πρώτη ηλικία, από ό,τι μας είπε. Δεν τσίμπησε ο James, αλλά κάπου, λέει, στα μέσα της Δευτέρας Λυκείου οι δρόμοι μας, λέει, συναντήθηκαν, λέει, κάπου στη μέση. Έκανε ένα βήμα αυτός εμπρός, άλλο ένα βήμα εγώ και ξεκίνησα δειλά-δειλά να παίζω. Άρα, σαν να λέμε με ελληνικούς όρους, Αντρέα και Γιώργο, ο James ξεκίνησε το μπάσκετ στην ηλικία των 17 χρονών. Πήρε υποτροφία από το Washington State στο senior year του. Άρχισαν να τον βλέπουν κολέγια. Πήρε full υποτροφία στο Washington State, ένα πολύ μεγάλο μπασκετικό σχολείο της Δυτικής Ακτής, και εκεί τα πρώτα 2 χρόνια δεν έπαιζε. Έκανε μόνο σκληρή προπόνηση, γιατί ήταν πάρα πολύ πίσω σε σχέση με το πολύ υψηλό επίπεδο της Division 1. Όμως η τελευταία του χρονιά ήταν αρκετά καλός και παραδόξως για τον ίδιο έγινε draft. Έγινε draft του 4ου γύρου του 1979, δεν με απατάει η μνήμη μου, στο νούμερο, Γιώργο, 75.
73.
Στο νούμερο 73. Αυτά. Γιώργο Καρούλια.
Well, hi. Hello, sir. It's an honor and a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Before we continue with your NBA career, I would like to ask you, how was the experience in Italy? Did it help you there grow even better? Did it help you with your fundamental skills?
It really did, because in Italy I was able to play full time, 35, 40 minutes every night, practice every day with the team. In the NBA, I wouldn't have been able to do that. We don't practice very much in the NBA because of time. We have so many games. So the NBA is not very conducive to training and learning young players. If you're a good player, great. If you're just trying to learn, the NBA is not the best place to learn. So that's why I went to Italy, so I could learn the game of basketball. I could learn how to play as a big man in the pivot position and against good competition. So I think the first year in Italy, I didn't want to go. My coaches and my agents, they talked me into going against my wishes. But, I finally said, okay, let me give it a try, because if I went to the NBA out of university, I probably would have been cut very soon, and that would have been the end of my career. So to go to Italy, play, put up some good numbers, come back and try again, that was the better route for me.
And then you went back. You went to the Seattle Supersonics, which had some members. I don't believe they were all of them from the championship team. I believe it was Jack Sikma, the starting center.
Yes, Jack Sikma was still there. Most of the championship team was there. I think they were missing maybe 2 or 3 guys.
I believe it was Vinnie Johnson.
They weren't on the championship team. They were drafted the same year I was drafted. And so they were on the team the next year after the championship. I was in Italy. So James Bailey, Vinnie Johnson, myself, we were all drafted together to the Seattle Supersonics. The Sonics also had Gus Williams, downtown Freddie Brown, John Johnson, Lonnie Shelton, great players. It was all championship players. The next year when I came back, they were still there, and I played with them for 3 years with our Hall of Fame coach, Lenny Wilkins was the coach, Hall of Fame player already, also Hall of Fame everything, Lenny Wilkins.
Yeah, he was a legendary, both coach and the player. How was it playing for him? Did it help you? What lessons did he give you for your future career?
Well, Lenny was very patient with me. He could see that I had tremendous potential. And so my first year, I was off the bench playing, 10, 15 minutes a game maybe as an off-the-bench player. The second year, I made it to the starting lineup along with Jack Sikma and Lonnie Shelton. So we had a very, very big front line, myself at center, Sikma at the power forward, Lonnie Shelton, of all people, at small forward. And that was our big front line along with Gus Williams, Paul Westphal. So we had some great players, Hall of Fame players, all of them. And I became a starter my second year and third year. And then I was traded to the San Diego Clippers.
By the way,
μια πολύ γρήγορη μετάφραση. Μετά το Washington State, αφού έγινε draft το James Donaldson, οι ατζέντιδες του έκαναν μια σοφή επιλογή, επειδή δεν ήταν έτοιμος και όριμος να σταθεί στο NBA, τον έστειλαν για ένα χρόνο στην Ιταλία, όπου εκεί σιγά σιγά χρησιμοποίησε την Ιταλική Λίγκα σαν σκαλοπάτι προσαρμογής στο υψηλό επίπεδο. Την επόμενη χρονιά επέστρεψε στην ομάδα που τον είχε κάνει draft, στους Seattle Supersonics, οι οποίοι τι είχε συμβεί την προηγούμενη χρονιά, είχαν κερδίσει το πρωτάθλημα του NBA. Άρα λοιπόν έκανε team-up τότε ο James Donaldson με κάποιους ασύλληπτους παίκτες, όπως το θυμόμαστε όλα, το φοβερό και τρομερό, με εκείνο το τρομερό step back για εμάς τους παλαιότερους, τον Ξανθομάλη, τον Jack Sikma, με εκείνο το τρακτέρ στην κυριολεξία, το Vinnie Johnson, τον Paul Westphal, ο οποίος έκανε μεγάλη καριέρα μετά σαν προπονητής στο NBA, με τον Gus Williams, και όλη αυτή την ομάδα, την πρωταθλήτρια του NBA, μπήκε σαν αναπληρωματικός ερχόμενος από τον πάγκο ο James Donaldson, αλλά όμως τη δεύτερη του χρονιά ήταν πλέον βασικός. Συνεχίζουμε, παιδιά.
After that, you went to the San Diego Clippers. I know that the whole thing wasn't working, though you had some great teammates. You had Terry Cummings, you had Bill Walton, even though he was a veteran, Ricky Pierce, Norm Nixon. They were great players. And thinking about it, they were at least a playoff team. They weren't that bad. Though you had the bad owner, it was a bit weird back then. And I believe you had said sometime it was like when you left the Clippers and went to the Mavericks, it was like dying and going to heaven. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Basketball is a team sport. And on a team, you have to have team chemistry. The guys need to get along with each other. They need to support each other. They need to be on the same page. And the Clippers weren't that. We had great individual players, but a terrible team and terrible team chemistry. Like you said, Bill Walton and Terry Cummings, Ricky Pierce, Greg Kelser, Norm Nixon.
Craig Hodges, I believe.
Yeah, Derek Smith, Craig Hodges. Great players. Jerome Whitehead, Michael Brooks. These are all, in college, all of them were All-Americans. They were All-American players in college, and of course, great players in the pros. But we just never were able to get together in chemistry-wise and really play together and support each other. And I think because a lot of us, we got there and we were very reluctant to go to the Clippers because the Clippers are always so bad. With their owner, Donald Sterling was the owner. A different coach every year. They always change. So going to the Clippers was almost like a kiss of death. It was the end of their career, basically. And so when I got traded to the Mavericks, I told everybody I had died and gone to heaven. I mean, the Mavericks were tailor-made with the perfect team for me to join because they needed a big center in the middle. They had great players on the perimeter. And so I fit the Maverick team perfectly, and they fit me perfectly.
Of course.
Thank you. James, the Mavs, you got that in that era. As you said, they were a great team with a great backcourt, like Blackman, Derek Harper.
Yes.
Mark Aguirre.
Of course. And in the tall men, there were you, Sam Perkins.
Yes.
And in '86 came a guy that we loved the most here in Greece. And from 2015, is not with us. I'm talking about Roy Tarpley.
I know. Yeah. Roy, I tell everybody, Roy Tarpley was probably the most talented player I ever played with. The most talented. And I played with Aguirre and John Stockton and Karl Malone and Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley. I played with a lot of really great players. Roy Tarpley was the best player of all of them. And it's just too bad he had so many problems. And I used to talk to Roy a lot of times in Dallas because he was like my little brother. We hung out together during basketball. He had a whole different life off the basketball court, and that wasn't my life. And then he'd come back and we'd get together at basketball practice. He used to tell me that he wished he could be more like me, more disciplined, more structured, more together, not have all these problems. But he thought my life was so boring. He thought my life was so square, He didn't want that life. He told me, he said, James, you are so boring. But, and so we were different, but we loved each other as brothers. I treated him like my little brother. We'd always have competitions, and I'd be the starting center. And I'd go out there and try to get my, 12 points, 12 rebounds, 15 rebounds. Roy would come in off the bench and get 20 points and 15 rebounds in 25 minutes. So we were always competing against each other. Who's going to get the most rebounds? Who's going to get the most block shots? Roy Tarpley, by far, was the best player I've ever played with.
Αντρέα, αυτό νομίζω αξίζει μετάφρασης. James, this deserves your commentation on Roy Tarpley because he lived with us for so many years here. Please allow us a short translation in order to honor great Roy. Λοιπόν, ο James Donaldson έγινε traded, έγινε ανταλλαγή μετά τους Supersonics στους Clippers. Κατά αυτόν ήταν μια τραγική κατάσταση, γιατί οι Clippers παραδοσιακά είναι το πιο παράξενο και ίσως το πιο αποτυχημένο ιστορικά franchise του NBA, διαχρονικά μάλλον. Τα τελευταία βέβαια χρόνια έχουν ανακάμψει, δίνουν σαφή σημεία ανάκαμψης. Εκεί πέρα πραγματικά η ζωή του ήταν ένα μαρτύριο στα 1 ή 2 χρόνια που έμεινε και μετά ήρθε, όπως μας είπε ο James, το φιλί της ζωής, γιατί έτσι το αποκάλεσε, η ανταλλαγή του στους Dallas Mavericks, όπου πραγματικά μπήκε μέσα σε μια ομαδάρα που είχε μια αγωνιστική ισορροπία σε όλες τις θέσεις και το μόνο κομμάτι του puzzle που έλειπε ήταν ένας ογκώδης, βαρύς, ψηλός, η άγκυρα δηλαδή, που λεγόταν James Donaldson. Εκεί λοιπόν με πολύ μεγάλους παίκτες παρέα, με το Mark Aguirre, το οχταπόδι, το Sam Perkins και όλους τους μεγάλους αυτούς παίκτες, εκεί έκτισε βασικά το όνομά του και κάποια στιγμή εμφανίστηκε και ο Roy Tarpley. Ο Roy Tarpley μας είπε ο James ότι ίσως ήταν ο πιο ταλαντούχος παίκτης εκείνης της γενιάς και σίγουρα και εκείνης της ομάδας, όμως ήταν ατίθασος, μάλλον όχι ατίθασος, ήταν ένα μονίμως ανήσυχο πνεύμα, ανικανοποίητο με το οτιδήποτε. Τον είχε σαν μικρό του αδελφό, παίζανε μαζί, παίζανε μονά, βγαίνανε, τον είχε υπό την προστασία του Κάποια συνέχισαν μετά την καριέρα τους στους Dallas να κρατούν μία επαφή, αλλά δυστυχώς ο James, ο Roy Tarpley δεν κατάφερε να συγκρατήσει και να ελέγξει κάποιες συνήθειές του, αυτό το ανήσυχο το πνεύμα του, με αποτέλεσμα να καταλήξει πριν μερικά χρόνια και να μην είναι πια ανάμεσά μας. Παιδιά, συνεχίζουμε.
James, if Roy could fight his own demons, would be a future Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah. You know, I remember doing a radio show down in Dallas several years ago when Dirk Nowitzki was still playing. And the radio host asked me who the best Dallas Maverick was ever. And of course, everyone's saying, you know, Dirk Nowitzki, blah, blah, blah. I told him, I said, no. Roy Tarpley is better than Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk played in an era where the big guys were shooting three-pointers all the time, and Dirk did that very well. But Roy could shoot three-pointers also. Roy could run the court faster than any big man I knew. Roy could play defense against Hakeem Olajuwon and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Moses Malone. Roy would play defense against those guys. Dirk Nowitzki couldn't do those things. Nowitzki's a great player, Hall of Famer, but Roy Tarpley is hands down much better player than Dirk Nowitzki ever was.
Αυτό μετάφρασε το Γιώργο Καρούλια που είπε για το Roy Tarpley.
Σε μια ραδιοφωνική εκπομπή που έγινε στο Dallas πριν από λίγα χρόνια, το ρωτούσανε ποιος είναι ο κορυφαίος Maverick όλων των εποχών. Εντάξει, οι περισσότεροι θα πούνε τον Dirk Nowitzki. Είναι ένας παίκτης Hall of Famer, είναι ένας θρύλος. Ωστόσο, το θέμα είναι ότι τους είπε όχι, ο Roy είναι ο κορυφαίος και είχε τον εξής απλό λόγο. Ο Roy κάθε μέρα τα έβαζε με θηρία όπως ο Hakeem Olajuwon, ο Moses Malone, ο Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Ο Dirk, όσο κορυφαίος και να ήταν σε μια εποχή που οι υψηλοί βαρούσαν τρίποντα. Δεν θα μπορούσε να κάνει αυτά που κάνει ο Roy σε εκείνη την εποχή, δεν θα μπορούσε να μαρκάρει αυτούς τους παίκτες, γιατί πολύ απλά θα τον έβαζαν μέσα στο ζωγραφιστό. And now, just because we're talking about big men, I would like to, at first, a great comparison about Roy I read, it's like he was like Kevin Garnett 10 years ago, but built like DeMarcus Cousins. You know, that's scary to think about.
Yes, it really is. Whoops.
No problem.
Okay, we're still there?
Yeah, we can hear you. You've played, now thinking about it, you've played against the greats of both the 70s, like Maurice Lucas, Daryl Dawkins, I believe Track Robinson was one of them, and the guys in the later generation, like Hakeem, like Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
I won't ask which generation was, but
I mean, James, it sounds to me like a dinosaur era. I mean, I hear names and I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. We're talking about monstrous.
It was a great era of NBA basketball. Do you remember when the NBA put out their all-time 50 greatest players ever?
1996, yes.
Yes. I played against 37 of the all-time 50 greatest players. 37.
Wow.
I started with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I ended up playing against Shaquille O'Neal. That whole era was the greatest.
Yeah.
Who was the toughest of them? Who was the toughest opponent? Big guy.
You know, I break it down two ways. Because there's the toughest and then there's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The toughest opponent for me to ever guard was Hakeem Olajuwon and Moses Malone. They were like the same kind of player. Hakeem was the new, improved Moses Malone. But Moses was just impossible to stop. He couldn't shoot as well as Hakeem, but he'd throw the ball up there. He'd go get the rebound. He'd go get it again. He didn't care about his shooting percentage. He would just throw it up there and get it. He could run the floor. He could block shots. So the toughest for me to play against ever was Moses Malone. The most unstoppable was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Absolutely could not stop him.
The skyhook, huh?
Oh, big left-handed guys like me and Artis Gilmore and Bob Lanier, Nate Thurman, we could get up there and jump with our left hand and try to block it, but it was always just a couple more inches that Kareem would put it up and over. And by the time you came back to the floor and you look behind, it's going into the net. So Kareem was the most unstoppable. Moses Malone was the most difficult.
Was he taller than you, Kareem?
No, we're the same. Same. 7. Artis Gilmore.
Να μεταφράσω παρακαλώ ο κύριος Ντόναλτσον, τον οποίο φιλοξενούμε απόψε, έχει παίξει αντίπαλος και συμπαίκτης με τους 37 από τους 50 κορυφαίους παίκτες του NBA όλων των εποχών. Άρα καταλαβαίνουμε όλοι τι συσσωρευμένη εμπειρία μοιράζεται απόψε μαζί μας. Μας είπε ότι οι δύο πιο δύσκολοι αντίπαλοι που έχει παίξει εναντίον τους είναι ο Χακίμ Ολάζον και ο Μόζες Μαλόν και μας ερμήνευσε το φαινόμενο Χακίμ σαν μια βελτιωμένη έκδοση του Moses, λιγάκι πιο τεχνίτης ακόμα από το Moses Malone, βελτιωμένη version. I have a question for you, James. You know, because back in the 70s and 80s, I was like 10, 15 years old, and we were watching NBA games here in Greece from videotapes.
Yes.
You know,
yes. I remember
videotapes. That coaches that were going to America for clinics, to attend clinics, they were bringing tens of them, and they were selling them as well. One guy that was freaking me out as a young kid, and I was literally scared of him, was Daryl Dawkins. Tell me about Daryl.
Daryl was a great player also. Daryl had tremendous talent, but I don't think he ever maximized his talent. He was more of a showman. He loved to be an entertainer. He loved to do the great dunks and call the names on the dunks and things. But he never really was that serious about being a great basketball player. He was a lot of fun to be with. I was around him a lot. I played against him a lot. We did some trips overseas together and all these things. So Daryl was always a great guy to be around with. But he's one of the guys I look at with all that talent. And he's so big and so strong and powerful. He could have done so much more. He could have averaged 20 points a game and 12 or 14 rebounds. But he never did. And I don't think he ever got close to it. I don't think he really cared. He just kind of had fun. He played and that was Daryl Dawkins. We miss him. We miss him also. We miss Moses Malone. We miss Roy Tarpley. We miss Jerome Kersey. There's so many players that have passed away recently that it's really too bad. And I almost passed away also back in 2015.
Yes, we read about that.
Yeah, it's the same year. So while I'm in the hospital, I'm reading about Roy Tarpley passing away and so many other guys. That same year, 2015, 2016, we lost a lot of guys. Yeah.
Στην ερώτησή μου περί του Daryl Dawkins που ήταν κατά κάποιο τρόπο το είδωλο το δικό μου εκείνη την εποχή, αλλά παράλληλα επειδή ήμουν σχετικά μικρός ήταν λιγάκι τρομακτικός και στο παιχνίδι και στην όψη, μας είπε ο James ότι ο Daryl Dawkins ήταν και είναι ένας underachiever, μπορούμε να πούμε, ότι δεν έφτασε ποτέ το ταβάνι του γιατί έβλεπε το μπάσκετ περισσότερο σαν διασκέδαση, σαν show και όχι σαν ουσία. Βεβαίως πολλά από αυτά, πολύ μάλλον από αυτούς τους παίκτες, συμπαίκτες και αντίπαλους πλέον βρίσκονται στον ουρανό. Εκείνη η χρονιά, λέει, το 2015-2016 ήταν μια πολύ δύσκολη χρονιά, λέει, για τη γενιά τους. Αρκετοί με προβλήματα υγείας, παίκτες του NBA ανεχώρησαν, όπως μας είπε, και ο ίδιος πέρασε εκείνη την εποχή μια σοβαρή περιπέτεια υγείας. Διαβάσαμε σχετικά άρθρα, την ξεπέρασε όμως και έτσι είναι απόψε μαζί μας. Αντρέα, Γιώργο.
Θα συνεχίσω. You've played against so many guys, and Christos said that his idol, that Daryl Dawkins scared him. That was the same with me with Shaq. I was a young boy when Shaq was a beast, and he was actually the reason that made me a Los Angeles Lakers fan.
Okay.
But I'd like to ask you about the 1988-1989 season, the greatest Dallas Mavericks season until Dirk's championship, probably.
Right.
You had a great team. You had Mark, you had Rolando, you had Blackman, you had Roy at his best, and you've managed to pin down the Lakers. You made them beat you in 7 games. What do you remember about that series? You know, I was reading an article about Pat Riley saying, "You know what? I don't have an answer for Roy." Roy was back then was amazing, you know, and there are many pictures back then. I have seen many pictures of you going up against Kareem, or Kareem shooting a skyhook over you.
That's right.
Could you tell us a bit more about this season, about what happened? I believe you became also an all-star back then.
Yes, and that was a magical season. I mean, that was, I think, one of the greatest seasons the Dallas Mavericks ever had. But, you know, there's a difference between a championship team and a very good team. A championship team knows how to win. They know how to pull out the win at the last game or the 7th game or 2 out of 3. They would know how to win the 3rd game. Championship teams know how to do that. Teams that haven't been there before, like us, we didn't know how to do that. We got to the Forum. They used to play in the LA Forum. And for game number 7, and the Lakers basically took care of us with no problem in game number 7, even though we were very competitive for the first 6 games. And we had our chance, but the 7th game, they knew how to win, and we didn't know how to win. And that was the difference. Playing against Kareem, you know, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Byron Scott, Michael Cooper, the Showtime Lakers, those guys, they were a great, great team. And back to Roy Tarpley. Roy Tarpley can guard all of those guys. He can guard Magic. He can guard James Worthy. He can guard Michael Cooper, and because he could move. He could do those things. Roy Tarpley could. I played against Kareem. That's all I played against. You know, I couldn't guard against James Worthy. No way. But Roy Tarpley can do those kind of things. So we were close, but not quite good enough. And I thought we would get back there year after year after year, keep on going and finally break through. We never got back there again.
What happened? Because either because Mark Aguirre was traded, the problems with Roy then started piling up.
Those were the 2 main problems. Mark Aguirre was a great player, but he was never a leader of the team. He was probably the best player before Roy Tarpley got there, but he never knew how to lead, how to take control, like Magic Johnson could, like Isaiah Thomas could, like Michael Jordan could. Those were true leaders. We didn't have that on the Mavericks. And so Aguirre started becoming disenchanted and unhappy after we lost against the Lakers, because Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas were his 2 best friends. And he wanted to go and get on a different team, maybe with them, and try to win a championship. He didn't want to stay in Dallas and take all the responsibility himself. So he eventually got traded to the Detroit Pistons with Isaiah Thomas, and they won 2 championships. So that's what Mark Aguirre wanted to do. You know, it comes down, you have to have leadership. You have to have leadership on the court and also off the court. Great teams have that. Stockton and Malone were that way, the mailman in Utah, along with Jerry Sloan, the great coach. In New York, Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, Anthony Mason, Pat Riley, the coach. I played on some great teams with some great leaders.
I was thinking just about it, man. You have so many great teammates, and even more great opponents. you literally played in the golden era of the NBA. We're talking about players like Kareem, like Magic, like Stockton and Malone, like, and you know, it feel. By the way, now that I'm sorry, God, I feel a bit nervous. Now that you're talking about it, how was your experience in the All-Star game? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? You played, I believe MJ was the MVP back then. Or
yes.
Dominic?
We played in Chicago, 1988, at the Chicago Stadium. And it was my first and only All-Star game. So I made it one time. Back in those days, every team had a 7-foot player who really could play very well. You know, some guys, they didn't make the All-Star teams, but they were very good players. I mean, I think of the 7-footers that I played against: Brad Daugherty with the Cleveland Cavaliers, Joe Barry Carroll with the Golden State Warriors, Artis Gilmore with the San Antonio Spurs. You know, all these, Robert Parrish with the Boston Celtics. You go
Jeff
back.
Rowland.
Yeah, Jeff Rowland with the Bullets. All these guys. I played against 7-footers every single night. I had to play against somebody my size and just as good, if not better, than I was. So I had to really come with my A game every single night. As I mentioned, I played against 37 of the top all-time 50 great players. The guys I didn't play against Lenny Wilkins. I didn't play against, you know, Bob Cousy and Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain. No, I played against these guys in my era. When I got to Chicago, it was like a dream. I mean, I looked up and down in the locker room on the Western Conference. Pat Riley was our coach. And I'm in the same locker room put my uniform on with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, Magic Johnson, just those three from the Lakers. You know, we had Akeem Olajuwon was there, Clyde Drexler, Stockton and Malone, both of them. You know, so this was that era of basketball. I'm like, pinch me, I'm dreaming. I just can't be. But for one day in my career, I was amongst the 24 best players in all the world. I was one of the 24, and I just said, "Wow, this is the very top of my career. I can't get any higher than this on an individual basis." And so that's what I remember about 1988 All-Star. Michael Jordan, of course, won the MVP. I got out there, you know, 10, 15, 12 minutes, whatever it was, and, you know, scored 4 or 5 points, 4 or 5 rebounds. But just being in that atmosphere was just a once in a lifetime. You can't put a price on it of what somebody.
James, you know, this comment of yours as far as your participation in the 1988 All-Star Game, it's worth translating, please. Νομίζω ότι εδώ είμαστε στην κορύφωση της απόψινή μας εκπομπής, γιατί μας περιέγραψε τώρα ο τόσο ταπεινός και σεμνός κατά τα άλλα, πραγματικά τεράστια μορφή και μεγάλη μας τιμή που τον φιλοξενούμε απόψε στην εκπομπή μας, ο James Donaldson. Μας περιέγραψε την εμπειρία του καταρχήν από τα playoffs του NBA του 1988, όταν και ιτήθηκαν αλλά σε 7 αγώνες από τους Los Angeles Lakers, από τους θρυλικούς Lakers, την καλύτερη ίσως ομάδα του NBA όλων των εποχών, με Magic, James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar κτλ. Μας είπε εντάχει ότι μέσα στις άκρες ο Mark Aguirre δεν ήταν ο ηγέτης που θα έπρεπε να ήταν, ώστε να είναι NBA contenders, δηλαδή να είναι διεκδικητές, σοβαροί διεκδικητές η Dallas. Ο Mark Aguirre, από ό,τι εμείς καταλαβαίνουμε, φαντάζομαι και εσείς ήταν λιγάκι παρτάκιας, να το πω σε ελεύθερη μετάφραση, έκανε μια όντως εξαιρετική χρονιά εκείνη τη χρονιά. Είχε 21,6 πόντους μέσο όρο ο Mark Aguirre. Θυμάμαι ήταν 14ος, είχε βγει για την ψηφοφορία του MVP του NBA. Εκείνη τη χρονιά ο Roy Tarpley είχε βγει καλύτερος εκτός παίκτης του NBA. Ο James Donaldson είχε κάνει εκπληκτική χρονιά. Τώρα συμμετείχε στο NBA All-Star Game του 1988 ανάμεσα στους 24 καλύτερους παίκτες του κόσμου προφανώς. Η εμπειρία του λέει ήταν συγκλονιστική. Νόμιζε ότι βρισκόταν σε μια ονειρική κατάσταση, συμπαίκτης αλλά και αντίπαλος σε μια γιορτή μαζί με τόσα άλλα είδωλα με τα οποία αγωνιζόταν εκείνη την εποχή, και πραγματικά εκείνη η χρονιά είναι που θα του μείνει αξέχαστη. Αντρέα.
Γιώργο, θες κάτι?
Last question before I hand you over to Andreas. After that, it was the New York Knicks and the Utah Jazz. How was things back there? You had also great teammates like Karl Malone and John Stockton, or Charles Oakley and Patrick Ewing. They were great teams. They were amazing teams. Yes. What was your experience back then with those teams?
Well, they were great teams and great teammates also. To be going to battle every night with Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, or Stockton and Malone. Great teammates, great coaches. Jerry Sloan, Pat Riley, Hall of Fame coaches. Teams and guys who knew how to win. I was getting to be a little bit older player at this point. So I'm probably 35, 36 years old, slowing down a little bit, can't do what I used to do. So I was more of a backup player. I was a backup player to Patrick Ewing. I'd get into games every now and then, but not too often. But mainly playing in practice against Patrick every day. The same with the Utah Jazz. They had Mark Eaton.
Yes.
Was he taller than you?
Yes, he's taller than I. He's bigger. Yeah, bigger too.
Wow.
My God.
7'4", a great shot blocker. And so, I played in practice every day. I stayed in shape. I stayed ready to go. I played a little bit, not full time. No, not those couple teams, but those are great teammates, great memories. And still great friends with John Stockton, especially with Patrick Ewing. Just great times with Kenny Smith, all these guys. I just really enjoyed being around these guys, as they made me a much better player. And I think prepared me for life after basketball better than my early years did.
Χριστό, θα μεταφράσεις?
Ναι, βεβαίως. Μετά την αυτή σπουδαία καριέρα του 4 χρόνων στους Dallas Mavericks, έκανε ένα πέρασμα από τους New York Knicks, όπου εκεί ήταν το backup του τεράστιου τότε του Patrick Ewing. Έμπαινε σε κάποια μικρά χρονικά διαστήματα στο παιχνίδι, δεν έπαιζε πάρα πολύ, αλλά βοηθούσε πάρα πολύ στην προπόνηση, αντίπαλος του Patrick Ewing. Αργότερα, μάλλον την επόμενη χρονιά, μεταπήδησε στους Utah Jazz, έπαιξε 49 παιχνίδια στις 2 χρονιές στη Utah, και μετά αυτή θα είναι η επόμενη η ερώτησή μας. Εκεί, Γιώργο Καρούλια και Ανδρέα Τσεμπερλίδη, είναι το turning point της καριέρας του όσον αφορά την Αμερική και το NBA. Τελειώνει μέσα σε άκρες η καριέρα του στο NBA και πάμε τώρα Ηρακλή.
Ανδρέα μου.
James, after 13 years in NBA, is coming a proposal from Greece.
Yes.
Over the Atlantic. A championship over the Atlantic. Did you know anything from Greece, from Greek championship?
Not very much. Of course, the big teams I hear of, Olympiacos, Panathinaikos, maybe 1 or 2 great American players playing with them. I didn't know the Greek players, no. But
did you know Nicky Gallis?
No, I didn't know Nick Gallis, no. I knew him when I went to Greece to play, of course. But in America, no, we don't hear about a lot of these great Greek players that they have. We hear occasionally about the great Greek teams, especially when the Olympics come around and, they're putting their national team together. We're putting our national team together, those kind of things. But no, we don't know. We don't follow European sports very closely here.
When you came here in Greece, it was how can I tell it? A shock for you.
A cultural shock, yes.
For the arenas, mostly. For the courts.
Well, yeah, I don't think it was a big shock to me. I mean, for someone who started basketball so late, like I did, my last year in high school, I grew to love the game of basketball. I loved playing. I loved practicing every single day, every year. And I wanted to play as long as I could possibly play. After the New York Knicks in 1992, I went to Greece and played with Iraklis, right? In 93? Yeah, yes. Iraklis. And that was really, after my first year in Italy, that was my return back to European basketball. Of course, now, again, I'm getting to be an older player, so I'm not going crazy on the court. I'm not dunking and doing all these crazy things like I used to. I'm thinking. I'm much more cerebral now, so I'm more of a thinking player. We had a good team with Iraklis, but we weren't good enough to beat Aris or good enough to beat Olympiacos or Panathinaikos. No, we're competitive, but we couldn't really beat them.
But you reached the final of the Greek Cup.
Yeah, we had a good team, but again, there's a difference, like I said, between a championship team and a very good team. There's a difference. The teams from Athens, they always win. They're always in the championship. They know how to win. The teams from the other cities, it's a good experience to get there. But I loved my time in Greece. Especially in Thessaloniki. I had so many friends there. Learned a lot about the Greek history, the great Greek civilization, all the great Greek foods. I had neighbors who would take me home every day and feed me great Greek food every day. And so that was really enjoying my life in Thessaloniki. I still have a lot of great friends there. I was planning on going to Thessaloniki this past summer in August, but the coronavirus hit and it wiped everything away. So maybe I can plan on coming there next summer. I would love to.
Do you remember?
You still have ties with Greece, like friends?
Oh, yeah. Very, very good friends. Very, very good friends.
Do you remember any teammates from Iraklis? Yuristovs, Lefteris Kakousis?
Yes. Yuristovs, of course. I'm trying to remember all their names. But I am seeing all the faces, and the coach, of course, the coach we had.
Dragan Sakota, I believe.
Dragan, yes. So, yeah, those were great times. I just finished up my NBA career overseas. I played in Greece, played in Spain again, played Spain 2 years, and then played another year in Italy, and that was... In 2000, I finally retired in the year 2000, 20 years ago.
Χριστό, θες να μεταφράσεις και αν θέλεις να διαβάσουμε κάποια μηνύματα από τους θεατές?
Ναι, καταρχήν να μεταφράσω βεβαίως. Θυμάται με πολύ μεγάλη νοσταλγία τον ερχομό του στον Ηρακλή. Όχι, δεν ήταν κάποιο πολιτισμικό σοκ η μετακίνησή του από την Αμερική και το NBA στην Ευρώπη. Προφανώς τα γονίδια του, λόγω των οποίων μεγάλωσε, μάλλον εξαιτίας των οποίων γεννήθηκε στην Αγγλία και έπαιξε την πρώτη επαγγελματική χρονιά στην Ιταλία, του είχαν δημιουργήσει έτσι μια οικειότητα με την Ευρώπη και γενικότερα με τον εκτός Αμερικής κόσμο, γιατί όλοι ξέρουμε ότι ο μέσος Αμερικάνος θεωρεί ότι η Αμερική είναι το κέντρο του κόσμου και όλα τα υπόλοιπα μέρη είναι απλά έτσι συνοδευτικά. Θυμάται με πολύ μεγάλη έτσι νοσταλγία το Yuristovs, τον προπονητή του, τον Dragan Sakota. Ήταν πολύ μεγάλο ζόρι τότε να κερδίσει στις ομάδες της Αθήνας, Ολυμπιακό, Παναθηναϊκό, Είχαν καλή ομάδα, αλλά βέβαια όχι τόσο δυνατή ώστε να χτυπήσουν τις μεγάλες τότε ελληνικές ομάδες. Εδώ θα μου επιτρέψετε, Ανδρέα και Γιώργο, να κάνω ένα refresh στη μνήμη του James, να του θυμίσω τη βαθμολογία τότε του πρωταθλήματος το 1992-93, μήπως τον οθήσουμε και θυμηθεί τίποτε άλλο παραπάνω. James, I just want to refresh your memory now and by giving you the rankings, the 1992-93 Greek basketball league rankings.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, I have them in front of me. In the regular season, your Thessaloniki neighbor PAOK got the first place. Panathinaikos was second. Panionios from Athens was third, and Olympiakos was fourth. Ours was fifth, and you guys in Iraklis were at the eighth place in the rankings. Though in the playoffs, Olympiakos made a huge comeback. He won the league, the championship. Panathinaikos got second. PAOK was third. Panionios fourth. Aris was fifth. AEK sixth. Peristeri seventh. And Iraklis was at the eighth place. If all these names... if these names remind you of something.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I remember Walter Berry was there also with PAOK, right?
Yeah.
Walter Berry was a good friend of mine and still a good friend. I'm trying to remember some of the other American players who played during that time. But, you know, I was just trying to practice every day with the team and try to help us to be the best we could be. I didn't really follow the other teams that closely. A lot of my neighbors did in Thessaloniki. They would tell me more about basketball than anybody else. But no, I don't really have a lot of real remembrances about, you know, the different places that we came in and all this. I just remember competing against a lot of really good players, a lot of really good teams, and you know, not quite having a great team. We had a good team, but not a great team.
Do you remember Iraklis beating Olympiakos in Thessaloniki 78-73?
I can't say I remember that.
You beat the champion.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 78-73.
You know, I actually have some old videotape of me playing basketball in Greece. I was watching the other day Iraklis against, I can't remember what team, Aris or something. So, yeah, I have some old film also.
Excuse me, I found some foreign names. Now I've made the research.
Yes.
They were great players. They were Sam Vincent and Sean Higgins from Aris. Yes. They were Roy in Olympiakos. Rod Sellers and Derek Hamilton. Melvin Cheatham. It was Mitchell Wiggins.
Yes, okay.
Dwayne McLean. Odie Norris in Peristeri. Tony White in AEK. It was the many previous NBA players. Derek Chivas in Daphne. Wow, you know it. And Turner and Henry Turner and Maurice Ed Stokes in Panionios.
Yep, I remember.
And of course, the truth, Walter Berry.
The truth, yes.
You know.
Do you remember any big men in Greece? Vasoulas, Vrankovic?
Vasoulas, was he with Olympiakos or Panathinaikos?
Yes, the tall guy.
The tall center. Yeah, I remember him. Yes.
Remember? Yeah. Okay.
What team was he with?
Panathinaikos and Vrankovic in Panathinaikos.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I remember playing against them. Yes. I have a lot of photos, a lot of videos from those days. So once in a while, I see the old photos playing against the players. Yeah.
I would like to ask you something. You know, I was just thinking about it. You were playing months ago in the Madison Square Garden, the mecca of the basketball. And then,
right.
Because we were talking about the cultural shock, and then you go to a much smaller stadium, which was Ivanofio, the name of Iraklis court.
That's right.
You know, it's fun thinking about, but I would like you to tell us more about the fans. You know, the NBA back then, okay, was more noisy, was noisier than today. That's for sure.
Right.
But the European basketball, the Greek fans, I believe, were something else. Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yes, and also I remember our practice court with the New York Knicks was much bigger than the it was beautiful practice facility, and it was much bigger than our stadium for Iraklis. The Greek fans were very, very passionate. I remember that they loved basketball, you know, to the point of sometimes getting into fights, sometimes screaming and yelling and throwing things inside the arena, smoke bombs across the way, back and forth.
They were smoking.
And the flag smoking, the banners. They really, I think they're the most passionate fans I've ever seen. You know, and when I talk about my European experience, because I played 2 years in Spain, 2 years in Greece, 2 years in Italy, the Greek basketball was the most competitive. The great players, the great teams, the great fans. Italy was really a nice place to be a tourist and see all the great things around Italy. Spain was really easy, relaxing, great, you know, lifestyle if you want to just relax and take it easy. But Greece was the best basketball that I ever played outside the United States, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Greece was a war.
It was war every night. It was war going against teams. Oh yeah,
I wanted to ask you about that. In the NBA, there are teams that don't care if they lose a game. Some teams are also tanking. Yeah. It's a fact. The Greek basketball was a different story. I don't know if the coaches or the owners told you ever, but Derek Hamilton told us that every game mattered, that every game was the most important of the year until the next one. Was it true that, and I would like to ask that, what did you think about our way of thinking that, and even the format, you know, that every game, unlike in the NBA, mattered, that you had to win, and win.
Right. Well, in the NBA, they play 2 or 3 times more games anyway. So it's a very, very long season. You know, overseas, they play 30 games or so, 35, 40 games. So you play 2 or 3 times a week. In the NBA, you're playing 3 or 4 times a week, maybe 5 times a week. So the games matter a lot more. Now, I do remember sometimes in Greece, the officiating was kind of questionable. And I even remember witnessing some officials pocketing some money behind the scenes to call it. You know. So, you know, that was always kind of questionable and, you know, not the most professional thing to see. But I think overall, you know, the players, I just loved the Greek players because they played so hard. And there were a lot of really good Greek players as well. And then the American guys who come in and help out a little bit and do their thing too. So, but overall, you know, it was a good experience. I don't have anything bad to say about Greek basketball or Greece. I want to go back and visit again next summer. Maybe I'll drop by Athens and see you guys when I'm there.
Of course. Before Andreas picks it up, we need to read some of the comments of our viewers here. I will start with, a gentleman named Vangelis Kale. Good evening to this great player, Donaldson. In his NBA career, he was a teammate with 13 athletes which played in Greece. Okay, very interesting, very interesting statistic. Thank you very much, Vangelis. 3 of them were all-stars. In Seattle, he teamed up with Danny Vrains.
Yes. Yep.
At Dallas, he teamed up with Rolando Blackman.
Mm-hmm.
With Roy Tarpley, with Randy White. Yes, Randy White, right after he was drafted, he signed with PAOK in Thessaloniki. He's right. John Saski.
Yep, Saski, yep.
Mike Iozulino.
Yes, oh yeah.
These guys, these 13 ball players, teammates of yours, James, they played in Greece as well. Thank you very much, this follower of ours, Mr. Vangelis Kale, for this very interesting statistics. In New York, he only played, James played only for 14 games, but he got the chance to play with Xavier McDaniel.
That's right.
Tell us about X-Men. Was he nuts?
No. X-Man was great. He was great. You know, he was kind of larger than life, though. He's not that big of a guy, maybe 2 meters tall, right? So he's not huge, but, you know, with the shaved head and always, you know, scowling, kind of like Kevin Garnett used to do. You know, they look a lot more ferocious than they are. But X was a terrific competitor. He played hard every night, and he didn't back down from hardly anybody. So you got to love guys like that, like a Kevin Garnett, like an Xavier McDaniel. Those guys, they come to play every single night, and they never take a night off. That's great to see.
So as a conclusion for this comment, Mr. Vangelis Kale, he wishes you the very best. He asks us to tell you how much we love you here, to have longevity, and we love everyone who made us love the game of basketball. You have good evening. We have greetings from a lady named Rena Zoe. Mr. Panagiotis Michalarias, congratulations. Mr. Theo Poulasikidis. Giant, greetings from Thessaloniki. We never forget you in Iraklis.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you.
Menelaos Kamariotidis, another gentleman. Congratulations, guys. You know, that's the way so we can remember our distant youth now. Mr. Adonis Katsaros, a prominent basketball reporter and sports writer in Cyprus. Zdovts and Donaldson, our favorite duo of that era. Even though I'm from Corinth, I managed to drive up to Thessaloniki to a tournament in Alexandria, where Iraklis obviously participated, and he saw you up close. Some other comments, Haris Kyriakou, kisses from his family, from your family, from Thessaloniki. You know about this.
Yes.
Haris Kyriakou.
Yeah, good friend of mine, yes.
Good. Alexis Kokolakos, respect Big James Donaldson. Konstantinos Kapetanopoulos, ask him who you consider a better player, Mark Aguirre or Orlando Blackman?
Nice question.
You know, I'll give you 2 answers, okay? A better player, Mark Aguirre. A better teammate, Rolando Blackman.
Okay.
Rolando and I, we called ourselves the Book Brothers because we would always be reading newspapers, magazines, books. On every road trip, we're always reading. So we called ourselves the Book Brothers, the 2 smart guys in the team. Everybody else is asleep or they're doing whatever they're doing. Ro and I are sitting right next to each other on the airplane and reading books and talking and having great conversations. So Ro Blackman is one of my favorite teammates.
Μας είπε τώρα, μας αποκάλυψε ότι τους αποκαλούσαν Book Brothers, τον ίδιο και τον Ρολάντο Blackman, γιατί ενώ οι συμπαίκτες τους στα ξενοδοχεία και στα αεροπλάνα κοιμόντουσαν, οι ίδιοι ήταν μονίμως με ένα βιβλίο μπροστά τους και μελετούσαν. Another follower and a viewer of ours, Mr. Philippos Kyriazidis. Good evening to everybody. I read in the Mavs media guide that one of his dogs, Golden Retriever in parentheses, ate the scouting report before a game against Portland in March of '88. Is that true?
That is very true. And matter of fact, I took the scouting report. It was all chewed up and beaten up. I put it in a plastic bag and I took it to practice. And I said I couldn't read my scouting report. My dog ate it. But it was very true. Yeah, it's very, very true.
Σε περίπτωση που δεν εννοήσατε, αγαπητοί τηλεθεατές, ο σκύλος του James, ξέρετε, όλοι οι προπονητές στο NBA αλλά και στα κολέγια, δεν ξέρω πλέον αν στην Α1 τη δική μας γίνεται, δίνουν σελίδες με τα scouting reports, δηλαδή το scouting, ξεχωριστά στον κάθε αθλητή τους για να το μελετήσουν στο σπίτι τους το βράδυ παραμονή του αγώνα. Λοιπόν, ο σκύλος του James Donaldson του έφαγε το scouting report και τα κομματάκια τα πήρε και τα έβαλε μέσα σε μια σακούλα και την πήγε την επόμενη μέρα προφανώς στη σακούλα στην προπόνηση. Here now our great common friend Kostas Molonis. Kostas Molonis is the reason we're together tonight, James.
Yes.
Good evening to the beautiful company of yours, a true legend on and off the court. Ask him about a great player who destroyed himself from drugs, John Drew. Do you remember him? He played for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yes, I remember John Drew very well. He was a great player, but again, like Roy Tarpley and many others, he had a lot of demons he just couldn't overcome. He called himself Deuces, because every time he'd score, he'd put his two fingers up, Deuces, meaning two and two. He could score, he could play basketball. I always felt very bad for the guys that had a lot of problems because they were great basketball players, but as humans and as people, they had a lot of issues, a lot of problems that a lot of people didn't know about. So they admire them as basketball players, but they don't really get to know them as a person. And so that's part of the problem, living your life in a public atmosphere. The public sees the public face, but behind the public face, there's usually some other things going on too.
There is a saying here in Greece, we always talk about it, that there were some players like Roy, like Mitchell Wiggins, who was also a great scorer.
Yes.
Not exactly Walter Berry. Walter Berry had other issues, mostly with his character, but we are saying about these players that if they hadn't their own demons to face, that we wouldn't ever see them in Greece. They were amazing players, but each one for his own individual reasons could not stay in the NBA.
Yeah. They would come to Greece only for vacation, James.
Yes, they would come here only for the vacations. They were NBA material players.
No, they had too many problems, but they took the opportunity. I remember when I was with the Sonics, Seattle Supersonics, playing with David Thompson. You remember David Thompson?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
David was one of the greatest players ever, but he had a lot of big personal problems, especially with alcohol and drinking and drugs. And so he was kind of having a lot of problems with the Sonics, but such a great player. Just a couple of years before he got to the Sonics, him and George Gerving had the big shootout trying to win the championship. I think George scored 77 points. David Thompson scored 65 or 66 points the last game of the season. That's how great these players were. And so I've been around a lot of these kind of guys that they're great players. They're actually really good people too, but they just have some problems. And that's what we need to continue helping with.
Γιώργο, να μεταφράσω λιγάκι και μετά να μην το πλατιάσουμε πάρα πολύ, ώρα περνάει, είναι ήδη 10:30, να πάμε στον Αντρέα. Να κάνω μια γρήγορη μετάφραση. Ο James Donaldson, έτσι με πόνο ψυχής, μας περιέγραψε μέσες άκρες ότι μπορεί να ήταν τότε εκείνη η χρυσή εποχή του NBA, αλλά μάλλον ήταν παράλληλα και μια τραγική εποχή, γιατί πάρα πολλά μεγάλα ταλέντα, ήδη καταξιωμένοι παίκτες του NBA που θα μπορούσαν να κάνουν και άλλο ένα ακόμα τεράστιο βήμα και να καταστούν θρύλοι, όπως ο Roy Tarpley, ο John Drew και αρκετοί άλλοι, δεν κατάφεραν τελικά να παλέψουν τους δαίμονές τους και είτε απέβαλαν εαυτούς από το NBA ή μετανάστευσαν στην Ευρώπη σε χαμηλότερο οπωσδήποτε επίπεδο και βεληνικούς πρωταθλήματα για να βγάλουν τον επιούσιο. Όμως αξίζει τον κόπο, παιδιά, να αναφέρω και κάποια άλλα σχόλια, γιατί οι τηλεθεατές μας και οι followers στο Facebook μας, η σελίδα μας είναι η ζωή και το οξυγόνο μας. Να μου επιτρέψετε να μεταφέρω. George Παναγόπουλος, good evening guys, what a wonderful guest. Κώστας Μανολακάκης, good evening gentlemen, 1000 bravos for your guests and your interviews. I remember the Homeric battles against Stoyan Vrankovic and Panagiotis Fasoulas in A1 back then. Nikos Kouroumalos, good evening to our beautiful basketball company. Nick Vangelis, a fellow sports writer in Cyprus, tremendous company with a true legend. Do you remember Giorgos Katsoulis? George Katsoulis was the foreman for PAOK, while Fasoulas was the 5-man. Did you play against George? He was like a kind of stretch four with a nice outside shot.
I can't remember really.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time, I know. So George Katsoulis, you have his greetings. Another one, Mr. Michalis Dolapsakis, good evening to the beautiful company. Who was the toughest big man that make your life difficult in the Greek league, James?
James, by the way, so your camera was okay. Can you hear us? Turn on the sound. I think we can't hear you. That's okay.
Hello?
Can you listen to us? I think he... Μ' αρέσει που μιλάει αγγλικά. Νομίζω ότι πάτησε κατά λάθος τον ήχο. Can you hear us?
We can't hear you. We can
see you. We can't hear you. The microphone. Turn on the microphone again. I believe it's in the center, if I recall correctly. It's something like microphone.
Ας περιμένουμε λίγο, προφανώς.
Ναι, βεβαίως.
Κάτι πάτησε κατά λάθος.
Ναι. Αυτά συμβαίνουν. Are you okay now? Can you hear us?
We cannot hear you.
We cannot hear you.
Νικό, βάλε με ξανά, αν μπορείς. Ευχαριστώ.
Εμείς όμως να συνεχίσουμε. Πραγματικά είναι ζούμε μοναδικές στιγμές. Παιδιά, εγώ νομίζω ότι έχω ταξιδέψει πίσω στα τέλη της δεκαετίας του 80, αρχές δεκαετίας του 90, στιγμές τις οποίες τις ζούσαμε τότε, εντάξει, η γενιά η δική μας περισσότερο, πάρα πολύ έντονα. Περάσανε θρύλοι από εκείνες τις γενιές. Ίσως ήταν και παραμένει η πιο ιστορική στιγμή του NBA. Δεν ξέρω ποια είναι η άποψή σας.
Μας κάνει νόημα. You can't hear us. Θα παρακαλέσουμε τον τεχνικό μας Νικόλα, αν μπορείς να του στείλεις ένα μήνυμα και άμα είναι να βγει από την κλίση και να ξαναμπεί, κάπως έτσι, μήπως το βελτιώσει. Αν το καλοσκεφτούμε πάντως, παιδιά, Μπήκε στη Λίγκα το 1980, δηλαδή πρόλαβε και τους βετεράνους της δεκαετίας του 1970, δηλαδή πρόλαβε παίκτες όπως ο Μωρίς Λούκας, ο Ντάριλ Ντόκινς, ο Άρτις Γκίλμορ, και ολοκλήρωσε την καριέρα του στο NBA το 92, βασικά και το 95 επέστρεψε, δηλαδή πρόλαβε και τη γενιά του Στόκτον, του Μαλόουν, του Πάτρικ Γιούινγκ, του Χακίμ Ολάζουον, αν και αυτός ήταν λίγο παλαιότερος, του Ντέιβιντ Ρόμπινσον. Αν το καλοσκεφτούμε, έχει αντιμετωπίσει, πέρα από το γεγονός ότι είπε ότι του αντιμετώπισε τους 37 κορυφαίους, αν το καλοσκεφτούμε, τα έχει βάλει με πόσους all-star ψηλούς, και αυτό είναι ίσως το πιο σημαντικό. Δηλαδή, καμιά φορά δεν το καταλαβαίνουμε στην Ελλάδα, γιατί το θυμικό μας, οι αναμνήσεις μας μένουν στα πλαίσια της ελληνικής της πραγματικότητας. Αλλά αν τα βάλουμε κάτω και σκεφτούμε με πόσους παίκτες έχει αντιμετωπίσει και τι παίκτες, παθαίνεις σοκ. Πραγματικά παθαίνεις σοκ, έτσι. Και μέσα σε όλο αυτό έγινε και All-Star. Ό,τι θέλετε να ρωτήσετε, παιδιά, εννοείται.
Εγώ να συνεχίσω με κάποια σχόλια.
Βεβαίως.
Μέχρι να ξανασυνδεθούμε, αν τα καταφέρουμε, με τον James Donaldson, αν και θεωρώ ότι ήταν υπεραρκετή και πολύ συγκινησιακά φορτισμένη η απόψινή βραδιά. Ναι, Κώστα Μανολακάκη, εγώ έκανα λάθος προηγουμένως. Το 93-94 είχε παίξει τον Ηρακλή. Ο Ηρακλής είχε βγει έκτος εκείνη τη χρονιά. Είχε ένα πέρασμα στην Κάχα Σαν Φερνάντο, βεβαίως, στην Ευρωλίγκα του 96-97. Ο Βαγγέλης Κάλε μας ξανααπαντάει ότι είχε παίξει 14 μάτς τότε στη Νέα Υόρκη, βοηθητικός πήγε να κάνει τα λίγα λεπτά του Ewing σωστά, αλλά αντιμετώπιζε κιόλας πάρα πολλά προβλήματα τραυματισμών ήδη. Ο Γιώργος Γιώτας, πραγματικά ένας υπέροχος άνθρωπος, εκτός από καλός παίκτης. Διάβασα στο Wikipedia για το Clinic Donaldson και τις ασχολίες του, πραγματικός gentleman. Όντως, ο James Donaldson καταπιάνεται με τη φιλανθρωπία. Πολλές φορές πηγαίνει και διαβάζει τα μαθήματα σε μικρά παιδιά κατοίκων για τα μαθήματα του σχολείου τους.
Χρυσό, μια παρένθεση θα κάνω, γιατί μας κάνει νοήματα. Ωραία. Απλά να του πούμε, αν γίνεται, να βγει τελείως από την κλίση, μήπως χρειάζεται να βγει τελείως.
Όχι, Γιώργο, δεν πειράζει, αυτά συμβαίνουν, υπάρχει κατανόηση από τους τηλεθεατές, όλοι γνωρίζουν ότι δεν είμαστε επαγγελματίες του είδου, ο τεχνολογικός μας εξοπλισμός πολλές φορές και οι οδηγίες που δίνουμε μπορεί να μην είναι επαρκείς. Έτσι, αλλά και αυτή είναι η χάρη και η γλύκα, να το πω έτσι, ίσως της προσπάθειάς μας από τα μηνύματα που παίρνουμε. Θα μου επιτρέψει να συνεχίσω πριν κλείσουμε από το Greek Fan Club των Utah Jazz. James was very good playing for the Jazz back in 1994-1995 season, όταν ο Felton Spencer σωστά είχε τραυματιστεί. Εκεί μπήκε πραγματικά ο James Donaldson και άρπαξε την ευκαιρία. Υπήρχε ένα έτσι σοκαριστικό αποτέλεσμα στον πρώτο γύρο που είχαν κερδίσει τους Rockets, σωστά. Ο Αλέξανδρος Ολυγκερίδης, πω ρε φίλε, τι παλάμη είναι αυτή, όταν πάλευε προφανώς ο James Donaldson να φτιάξει, να επαναφέρει τη σύνδεση. Και ένα τελευταίο σχόλιο πριν κλείσουμε από τον Βαγγέλη Κάλε. Όντως, Βαγγέλη, τον Ντάρπλεϊ θα τον έβλεπαν στη Μύκονο για διακοπές το καλοκαίρι. Λοιπόν, ήταν μια συγκλονιστική, κατά την άποψή μου, Γιώργο Καρούλια, αλλά και περιπετειώδης τεχνολογικά παράλληλα απόψε. Δεν πειράζει, αυτό ήταν έτσι και το κερασάκι στην τούρτα, το οποίο δίνει αξία αυτή η ατυχία που είχαμε απόψε, όμως δίνει αξία στο μέγεθος του σημερινού μας φιλοξενούμενου. Γιώργο Καρούλια, να σε ευχαριστήσω που ήμασταν απόψε μαζί, να χαιρετήσουμε έστω και κατά κάποιο τρόπο της αποστάσεως τον James Donaldson. Εγώ θα επιδιώξω να του τηλεφωνήσω μετά το κλείσιμο της εκπομπής, να τον ευχαριστήσω. Θα ξαναβγούμε και κάποια άλλη στιγμή, ίσως παρέα και με κάποιο συμπαίκτη του. Αγαπητοί μας τηλεθεατές, σας ευχαριστούμε που ήσασταν απόψε μαζί μας. Εύχομαι να απολαύσατε, να πήραμε μία γεύση από τις παλιές χρυσές εποχές του NBA. Ο φιλοξενούμενος μας, ο James Donaldson, τον είδατε όλοι πόσο σεμνός και ταπεινός, ίδιον των σπουδαίων ανθρώπων σε όλα τα φάσματα της ζωής. Να είστε όλοι καλά, καλό και ασφαλές Σαββατοκύριακο εύχομαι. Επανερχόμαστε την Τρίτη με ένα καινούριο retro stories και τις υπόλοιπες εκπομπές μας την ερχόμενη εβδομάδα. Καλή σας νύχτα.